All right, greetings and welcome in. It's Bettor's Last Stand, show number 70, coming to you from the Pine Room Studios in luxurious downtown Wheeling, where construction and cold weather have taken over. Well, construction for the last 5 years, but cold weather for the last couple of days. It's pretty frigid out there, but it is winter. We got to remind everybody, it is winter. Well, I don't know what we're expecting out of winter, but I've heard a lot of people panicking about this weather, but last time I checked, this is what January is supposed to feel like. Anyway, we roll on here. Show number 70. Middle of January already. Seems like the new year just came, but we're already halfway through the first month of the new 2024 season, year, whatever you want to call it. Rolling on here in the Pine Room. Plenty of things happening. Be sure and check us out all over social media at the Pine Room Studios, BLS_PRP for your Bettor's Last Stand stuff, more so than the regular Pine Room stuff. But you want to keep abreast on all that stuff. Check our show out on the Watchdog as well. 7 hours a week of pretty good radio, I would say. Not to pat ourselves on the back. Definitely don't like to talk about ourselves too much. But yeah, it's an entertaining time. Hopefully we make people have some fun and learn a little bit as well as have some really good guests. So we continue on with the radio show on WKKX, The Watchdog, each and every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So loaded show coming up today as you check the podcast here, as you check out Bettor's Last Stand. Flip on the radio right now. We're probably at least into our show. We got a good Friday show coming up for you. Got Lunch Madness around the corner here. We'll give a little bit of information on that coming up in the next few shows to get ready for that exciting contest that we have. And plenty of other things on the horizon. So keep an eye out at the Pine Room Studios. WatchdogNetwork.com. You can listen to the stream anytime, anywhere. All right, let's talk about betting stuff right now. Back to last week. So Super Wildcard weekend in the books. Some of the games going kind of the way we expected. Other games going not so much how we expected. We'll do a little recap of that, but we were down nearly 3 units last week. Wasn't a strong week, definitely not. But for me, it was terrible. Sam had a Dalton Schultz touchdown score. That one was a pretty good one. Kept him a little bit above sea level, but I was just trying to scratch out some just to try to get back to 500, and it wasn't easy. A couple of bad breaks in soccer that went against me. It was really frustrating. But anyway, we were 1-0 in our best bet, though. I didn't nail the Kansas City game all the way around. We had first half under. We had the Chiefs, was my best bet of the week, and we had the game total under. So pretty easy one there. We didn't have to sweat at all about the total or the Chiefs really in that game at all. Miami made just one play, so that was all there was to see there. So that one was pretty good. So if you loaded up on the best bet, you had a pretty good time of it. If you didn't, then you were lucky to scratch out a little below even, hopefully, depending on what all you got there. Golf didn't go very well either. I had Russell Henley in there in the mix, really good chance of winning, and he had a couple of just catastrophic misses in the last couple of holes. He hanged on. He hung on for a top 5, but nothing to write home about. The rest of our guys were just average at best. We had a few top 20s in there, scratched out a little bit, but nothing too exciting. In that tournament, though, Grayson Murray was around 500-1. So sorry I didn't give him out. Grayson Murray had been a guy that I was on a lot, probably, 5-6 years ago when he was first coming on to the tour. He's a pretty good player, and I think he had some substance issues. I think he was an alcoholic of some kind, or something along those lines, and that, was way out of golf for a while, and then just making his way back in there. So he's back in where he can win. He was always talented, so. But wasn't going to give him out. His form hadn't been anything to speak of, but he got it done there on a really easy course. And I'd like to think that this week's will be a little bit better, but we'll talk more about the American Express coming up here in the second segment of the show. No Sam today. He's just getting back from Texas. His cousin got married, and his cousin on his mother's side of the family. So that's why our family wasn't at that wedding, but anyway, hope everybody down there had a good time. Nice people, the Sonnefeld. So we give them a shout out, and Sam and his mom went down, and hopefully they had an enjoyable time. He's getting settled back into work, and I know he had a commitment this afternoon, so he can't make it. But his picks will be available on BLS_PRP as always, as Blackpool just scores in a cup match here against Nottingham Forest. The Seasiders looking pretty excited right now to cut it to 2-1. If you haven't ever checked out Blackpool, Check it out on the Google Maps. It's like buried right on the sea. You talk about a great place to live. If you were able to live in England, that would be the number one spot that I would want to live in, right up against the sea. It's a really, really cool place. So, Seasiders cut it to 2-1 against Forest here in a cup match. All right, so back to business here. As I said, Sam, pretty solid. He had that Dalton Schultz touchdown. He actually had, I think he scored twice. So, but I was not good. I did have the best bet come in. Golf was awful. We'll try to bounce back. 17-11 on the best bets this year. Coach and Chris, 6-11 for Coach, 11-6-1 for Chris, but they haven't made any picks in a while. Too many things happening for them right now to be able to make it to the show, unfortunately, but that's all right. All right, so NFL wildcard, Super Wildcard Weekend, recapping that a little bit. It's kind of the observations that you take away from the weekend were, like I said, you had a lot of things that you thought were exactly how you pictured them in your mind. Like Dallas losing, I absolutely, pictured that in my mind. I talked about it last week. I didn't think they would. I thought that maybe they would be able to win this time, but I know it wasn't going to be easy, and it wouldn't surprise me if they did lose. I didn't expect them to lose quite that bad, and I'm actually surprised that they haven't cleaned house with Prescott and McCarthy. But if they don't, they're never going to win anything. Those guys are losers by trade. They'll never be able to beat anybody, because if you couldn't beat that Packer team with a very subpar head coach and basically a rookie quarterback, he's not really a rookie, but he's his first year starting, and then you'll never beat anybody, because you're not going to get an easier opponent ever in your own house to take care of than that. And Green Bay thoroughly embarrassed them. It was an embarrassing showing for Dallas. And Jerry Jones, he's a lost cause if he doesn't get rid of those guys, and he's just the bigger idiot than I think he is. The Saturday evening game, Lions and Rams, or Sunday evening game, Lions and Rams came down to the wire. It was the only game of the week that actually the spread actually mattered in the game, as the Rams get to cover there, plus the 3. Rams probably win that game if Sean McVay doesn't screw up his timeouts and use 2 of them early in the second half. They only had the 1 left, and they could never get the ball back. And I really do. Stafford was moving the ball. What a warrior he is. He got beat around, probably cut some questionable hits against him, but they were able to hold off the Rams charge. But the Lions defense, we'll talk more about it when we go through this week's card, but Lions defense to me is extremely concerning. They don't get enough pressure, and their secondaries are really, really bad. And, they did decent against the run of the Rams, but their passing game was just ate them apart. So I'd be very worried about the Lions going forward, and I think they're very vulnerable because of that. But all right, back to Saturday's games. The 2 Saturday, Cleveland right up there with Dallas. And as bad as Dallas's defensive game plan was, Dan Quinn, who's being considered for the Seahawks coaching job, the Seahawks would be idiots to hire him. If they hire him, the 49er fans and the Ram fans, they should rejoice, because they'll never win. They'll never win with that guy. That just won't happen. He blew a Super Bowl, biggest lead in Super Bowl history with the Falcons. How could you hire a guy to be able to be a head coach again when you blow that lead? You don't just, he's going to figure it out. Well, no, he's not going to figure it out. He's just not going to. When you're making blunders like that time after time, Dan Quinn was always a terrible coach. He blew leads time and time again before that Super Bowl, if people remember when he coached the Falcons. He should never be a head coach again. He should be a defensive coordinator, and I'm not even really sure he should be a defensive coordinator, because his game plan against Green Bay was absolutely putrid, and it cost his team the game. And Jim Schwartz, another guy getting a lot of steam, I'll give him another chance. He didn't have all the experience when he coached the Lions the first time and blah, blah. He's not a head coach. He can't be. You can't have guys with this poor game plans in playoff games. Browns defense completely listless, horrible game plan. I don't know what they were doing. They were playing zone coverage, and literally there was nobody ever in the zones where the Texan guys were. So those 2 guys should never, ever be head coaches again, and I would really, really re-examine whether or not they should even be coordinators. Schwartz got a lot of credit this year for how good his defense is, but all those numbers were built at home, and I'm really not certain why that is. There's only so many things a crowd can do in a game to make it to where you're having an advantage. It almost makes me think they're cheating somehow, but I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it doesn't seem normal. It seems almost as weird as the Astros thing, although the Astros thing was the reverse. They were better on the road somehow. But anyway, don't want to go down that track right now. But anyway, bad game plans for the Browns and the Cowboys. We can't you can't give them anything but bad F- marks for those defensive game plans. So those were the two worst performances of the week by far. Chiefs game, as I mentioned, pretty much what I would have expected. Chiefs and under, they take care of the Dolphins pretty easily. I know there's a lot of Chief hatred out there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, man, I know the Chief fatigue is there. But, man, I feel like the Patriot fatigue was pretty high around these parts. But, man, you got to respect these teams at some point. Like, even if you don't like them, you got to respect them. And I have nothing but respect for the Chiefs. They're very businesslike, and they got the job done there. The Monday night game, Tampa and Philadelphia. Talk about another team that completely no-showed on defense and pretty much offense too. Philadelphia, you could see about 6 weeks ago they were starting to lose it, and they completely lost it in the final weeks. The Christmas, they were lucky to hang on against the Giants. Tyrod Taylor starts the game, they probably lose. And then when you saw the Giants just dismantle them, the Giant team who's been horrible all season. But the Giants have a couple interesting wins. They beat the Eagles. They beat the Packers. So that would worry me if I was a Packer fan. But the Giants manhandled the Eagles, and the Buccaneers manhandled the Eagles. The Buccaneers knew they were winning that game basically from the first drive. Baker Mayfield was great, and the Bucs did everything they needed to do in the game. Eagles, kind of like the Dolphins, they had one big play. One play to Smith, and that was the only thing they did the entire game. Philly's got a lot of problems. They got a lot of problems. I don't know where to begin with it. Sirianni got all that praise last year. Maybe he wasn't all he was cracked up to be. Jalen Hurts, maybe he's not really as good as everybody thought he was either. Maybe the more tape that comes out on these guys, the harder it is to be good. So that's when you tip your cap to these guys who've been doing it for as long as they have, and defensive coordinators still can't stop them at all times. But we shall see how Philly bounces back next season. I wouldn't expect them to be super terrible, but you never really know. If they lose the locker room and they bring the coach back, it could continue on. Steelers-Bills, another Monday night game. This game was interesting to me. I thought the Steelers had some chances to make that game a lot closer than it really was. Now, the Bills jumped out all over them. I'll give the Bills credit for that. They came ready. Josh Allen was the best player on the field by far. He was exceptional in the game. But key turnover in the red zone, or end zone, really, on a drive that could have cut the lead to 14-7. Turns out to be 21-0. And then, Steelers were chasing the game after that. Pickens fumbled early in the game. Steelers had a lot of mistakes, and they're playing without Watt. But I thought the Steelers really had a couple of things. They got the block kick, which kind of turned a little momentum for them before halftime. But I thought the Steelers actually had an outside shot of at least covering in that game and really maybe even winning, because I didn't think Buffalo did a very good job of managing the game once they got the lead. And I thought Buffalo started to panic a little bit when they were when it was 21-7, and the Steelers kind of took back some of the momentum. So Buffalo's a team that is going to go as far as Josh Allen's going to take him, and can he do it alone? Because I see a lot of holes in Buffalo. I know everybody out there is telling me how great Buffalo is. That's all I hear. But as I'll talk about in the rundown of the divisional playoff matchups, I'm not quite on that bandwagon quite yet. Now, I am on a Josh Allen bandwagon because I think he's just superb. But the Bills as a team, they got a lot of holes, and I'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. Just 1 point spread came into play. As I said, the Rams, they lost the game by 1, +3. The Browns were a playoff favorite for the first time since '94, where you can see they should not have been. And then the Super Wildcard Weekend favorites went 3-3 straight up, 2-4 ATS, and then the overs and unders were 3-3. Home dogs 2-0. 2-0 for the home dogs. Tampa and on Saturday, Houston. So those were your two home dogs. They got the job done. Impressive by both of them. Can't say anything but that. Packers were impressive as well, but we'll talk about some of their vulnerabilities. Coming back over to the NFL here, just continuing on here. Peacock rating was huge for that Kansas City and Dolphin game. Now, I think a lot of that may have to do with the Taylor Swift element. A lot of Swifties, probably a lot of teenage girls were going into their Peacock accounts of their dads or moms or whatever, or if they didn't have it, they were signing up for it to watch that game. So Taylor Swift stealing the show as usual, and I know people are mad about that too, which I just don't get it. Like, just ignore it. whatever. They show the guys' wives and girlfriends all the time on these broadcasts, and she's the biggest entertainer of our era right now. So I can't imagine that if the networks didn't show her, they'd be doing a bad job by their investors and their stockholders, if you ask me. So business first, money is everything. Dallas, we talked about, disaster once again. See how they end up. The Eagles finished the season 0-7 ATS and 1-6 overall. So they had one win, was against the Giants on Christmas, and they did not even cover in that game. So really ugly stuff from the Philadelphia Eagles. Patrick Mahomes has been an underdog 10 times in his career. He's 7-3 straight up, 8-1-1 ATS. We'll get into that when we talk about the games. Tampa Bay is now 9-3 ATS as dogs. 5-1 as a dog of 4 points or more. So Tampa responds well as a dog. Baker plays well as a dog. When the pressure's not on, those guys seem to rise to the occasion. So pretty impressive stuff there. And we'll talk a little more NFL coming up after the break. But we're going to jump over to hockey here. Penguins had a nice win the other day against the Kraken. That was a Monday afternoon game. They played that before the Steeler game. Penguins starting to look, up and down, I would say. They've played well, but not well enough. They haven't closed out some games that they probably could have won. Jari with the shutout yesterday. So they're making a little bit of a move in the Metropolitan Division, but they gotta get a little bit more consistent, and they can't have these games where they're falling behind very quickly or they're blowing the lead. So if they could cut those two problems out, they might have a shot. Power play's got to continue to improve. But Sidney Crosby, Sam said it on here a couple weeks ago, Sidney Crosby right now far and away the MVP of the league. If people aren't paying attention to it, they're not really paying attention. But this dude's getting up there in age. A lot of guys are tapering off. You see Ovechkin struggling. This guy's just on a wicked pace. He's on a pace to score 50 goals. He's just dominating out there and at his age, and he's just performing at such a high level. And he'll probably get ignored because he's not from Ontario, which is the only place that they consider Canadian players to come from. If you're from French Canada or out on the banks, Nova Scotia or Prince Edward Island or any of those places, New Brunswick, you're just not going to get any attention. So anyway, Canadian media drives that all the time. Sometimes in Western Canada they'll pick up somebody. That's why Connor McDavid wins all the time. But the Oilers are playing well. They've won 11 in a row, so you can't take anything away from them. I still think their goaltending is going to be a problem, but Paul Coffey has made just incredible strides with their defensemen, just making them so much better in so many different areas of the game. So I don't know what took so long for somebody to listen to Paul Coffey's expertise, one of the best to ever do it. So Oilers rolling. Toronto is a disaster. They blew another lead last night to the Oilers. Lost. They've really been struggling lately. There's no end in sight for them. They don't have the goaltending. They don't have the defensive play. They don't have the overall makeup. Their captain's getting demoted. John Tavares, who's just basically a big loser. They just don't have enough. I like to see Austin Matthews get out of that dump, but it probably won't ever happen. But Canada's only hope right now is the Oilers. If the Oilers were to make a big trade at the deadline and get a goalie, like a legitimate goalie, they might have a shot. I know a few weeks ago I said no chance a Canadian team would ever win this year, and I still don't think they will. But if they were to make a really big-time splash and get a really proven goaltender, then maybe, just maybe, they have enough. But they still got to get through some really good teams out west. Colorado and Winnipeg, who's playing just superb right now. As I talked about last week, it's been like 30-some-odd games since they've allowed a team they're playing score over 3 goals. Well, that's continued on another week. Last night, the Islanders had 2 goals in the third period with 15 minutes left, and they could never get past the 2. Jets win again. They're playing well. Kings have been slumping a little bit, but I think they'll pick it up. Vegas is really good. Dallas is really good. Western Conference loaded, so it's going to be tough for Edmonton to get out of there unless they really, really get a goaltender that can carry them. Going through a few of these stats that we give out every week. Goal in the first 10 minutes. Yes, Ottawa 28-10. Minnesota 29-12. Seattle and St. Louis 28-13. Those teams are goal. Yes, in the first 10 minutes. The last 10 games, we got 3 teams on an 8-2 right now. 8-2 run right now. Ottawa, Seattle, and New Jersey all 8-2 to the yes goal in the first 10 minutes. Ottawa 16-1 run on the road. Goal in the first 10 minutes. That is nuts. They continue to do the job, whether it's goal for or goal against. So jump on those while you can. keep exploring them. You can check those guys out on Twitter. Chris Otto and Ian Duncan, they do a really good job of putting up the spreadsheets each and every couple of days. Goal in the first 10, no. We talked about the Jets, how well they've done defensively. 28-14 to the no, 7-3 to the no in their last 10. So Jets definitely a lockdown, defensively responsible team with very good goaltending. That's got a recipe to carry in the playoffs, and it seems like they've found some depth scoring, which they have not had in the recent years, because a couple of years ago I was kind of high on them, and they just fizzled out at the wrong time. They could not get any scoring from their bottom six, and that's changed now. So Jets look like a contender at this point, but long way to go. We haven't even hit the All-Star break. First period overs and unders. Senators of Ottawa, 27-11 on the season to the over in the first period. That's over 1.5 goals. The New Jersey Devils, 27-13 to the over. And the Calgary Flames, 29-14 to the over, 1.5 in the first period. Here's some streaks right now. As I said about Ottawa, 16-1 run on the road. Goal, yes, in the first 10. Well, their 15-1 run with goal in the first period. Over in the first period. So it'd be over 1.5 goals. 15-1 to the over in the first period. A run for the Ottawa Senators. That's across both home and away. Carolina, 8-2 to the yes in their last 10. So that's over 1.5, 8-2 in the first period. For Carolina, the unders in the first period. In the last 10, Jets 9-1. So a 9-1 run where it's been one or less goal for the Jets in the first period, not necessarily for them or their opponents combined. Philadelphia on an 8-2 run. Philadelphia as a team is playing very responsible hockey right now. It's really interesting because they were so bad defensively last year in goaltending. Tortorella's turned him around. We'll see how long his effect can last. He usually wears off and then the team goes south quickly, but he's trying to hold them above water, so you can't count it out yet, and sadly so. The Flyers are a playoff contender at this point. Going over to basketball now, touching on a couple of things happening across college basketball and the NBA. Mountaineers, which we talked about a little bit last week, talked about on the radio about how they're going to struggle to win games in the Big 10 or the Big 12. Thought maybe the 2.5 would have been there. Wow. Oh, my. Blackpool just tied it in the 80th, 79th minute. Oh, my. They were down 2-0. This place is going absolutely crazy. Good stuff. All right, so back to college basketball. The Mountaineers get a win against Texas. Upset victory against a ranked Texas team in Morgantown. Wouldn't count on that happening very often. I thought 2.5 was the number. Maybe they're going to get over that now. They got Oklahoma in action tonight. That's going to be a bloodbath. I think they'll get killed. But we shall see. Mountaineers showing a little bit of sign of trying to figure out some ways to stay in these games. But long term, they're just really not a very good basketball team. There's a lot of volatility in college basketball. I mean, it's every night these teams. Conference games now, in the full swing, and these teams are really battling it out. Be looking for good spots, meaning not point spots or spreads, but like good spots, like coming off of win, loss, vice versa, playing against teams who just upset somebody big at home, and then they got to go on the road. Be looking for those, because those are where you're starting to find a little bit of predictability. I don't want to say it's easy by any means, because it isn't at all, because you still got to deal with the point spread of it. But you have teams in bad spots or good spots playing against each other. Maryland the other night beat Illinois. Really good road win for them. They haven't won a Big Ten road game of that magnitude in a couple of years, but now they go to Northwestern. Northwestern would be a play, because they're coming off a loss of a game that maybe was a really tight wire loss for them. So look for the teams that are pretty decent, that are coming in off of a good or bad performance, and then if it matches up with the team on the other side that's off of that, and if you can get a couple of a good versus a bad, or a bad versus a good, you can use those spots. So I think there's some plays out there each week now, and you also have a history with these teams. Now you go through, look at the way these teams have played on the other team's home court. If you see a team that has won like 8 straight times against the team at home and have covered the spread every time, that's one you want to look at. And I'm not saying you don't want to play it blindly, but you want to use that in there. Like if you like the number, if you like the way the team's playing, if the personnel's checking out, assuming that they have either the same coaches or somebody from the previous staff, you want to look at those games, because as you can see, when you look at deep into college basketball, you'll see that there's a lot of teams that just have somebody's number, whether it's they're the fifth best team in the league, but they always give the top team trouble every year, whatever. There's always spots like that out there, especially in these small leagues, Horizon League and the Summit League and the MAC and just on and on and on. Metro Atlantic especially is a great league to wager on. But yeah, look for these trends. You can find a lot of information out there. Just do a little research. If there's a team that you're interested in, check them out. You can look at Ken Palm ratings. Then if you get kind of where you're thinking like, oh, I like the spot for this team, the opponent's in a bad spot, this is going well for him, this is going well for him, this is going bad for him, I'm going to check it on Ken Palm. And then you got like 100 level difference in the teams on Ken Palm ratings. And then maybe you say, all right, that sealed the deal. I'm going with that team that I liked. So we'll talk plenty more about college basketball when we get the NFL put to bed. I'll start going through some forecasted ahead matchups and things like that. We put up some plays on the Twitter site, and I'll probably do more of that now that it's conference play and get a little bit better handle on that stuff. Because a lot of times I'm watching these numbers and I don't play them to the very, very end, so I don't even want to put them up there because it really can't help anybody, because it's like literally a couple minutes before the tip you see a number going up 3 or 4 points, you playing it, and a lot of times I'll wait and play it late. So yeah, so back to basketball though, just overall basketball. NBA, Lakers 10th in the West right now. Celtics look to be the elite team in the Eastern Conference. A couple of big trades and maybe on the horizon here. Looks like the Pacers just got Siakam from Toronto, which really that's big, because I mean you get a guy that can defend a little bit. Pacers have had some problems defending. I think that's something that they really, if they can get a lockdown defender, that they could match up against some of the better players in the Eastern Conference. You know, you're going to have guys that are going to try to stop Tatum and Giannis. Siakam then becomes a really valuable part of that team. So I like the Pacers. They're fun. They're very good offensively. They need to get better defensively. They address that, and I think that's a really good trade for them. You're going to see some more. I think Philly will do something. The Lakers, I'm sure LeBron is crying up a storm right now to get some players in here to help him. I got to see if the Bulls will be sellers. Knicks already made a move. I don't think Boston will make hardly anything. Suns, I don't know what they'll do. They're playing a little bit better. Clippers starting to, I don't know. The Clippers to me are starting to show like maybe they're getting a little tired. Like their guys have played a lot, so they may gear it back a little bit. But they had a nice little run there for a while. And the Timberwolves weathered the storm, but they're still on top of the Western Conference, up with the Thunder, who are playing really good basketball right now. So couple of NBA, a near bad beat if you saw this on Martin Luther King Day. The Hawks, they are leading by as many as 35 against the Spurs on MLK Day. And they literally had to make free throws. The Spurs were fouling them in the last 48 seconds of the game, and they had to make free throws to cover the 8.5 spread in that game. So you had a near miss there. They won 109-99, so they barely hung on, but a 35-point lead. That would have been a terrible loss if you had the Hawks. Kings money line the other night, they were up 22 on the Bucks. Damian Lillard hits like a 45-footer to beat them, 143-142. So if you had that one, condolences. And then the over in the Rams-Lions game was a pretty tough one. I mean, I'm not going to call it a bad beat, but it's an unfortunate ending. If you had 51, 52, 53, anywhere in there, it was 21-17 at halftime. In an NFL game, it's 38 points. I mean, you're thinking, wow, I'm on a way better than halfway pace here. I only need, a few scores in the second half. All you got was 9 points in the second half. So 24-23 final. That one hurts a little bit. That one, I was on the end of that one. So not a fun one there, but the show will go on. So basketball will be heating up here. NBA trade deadline will be approaching. We'll have the All-Star game coming. Same with the NHL. So plenty more. Those seasons a long way from ending. Same with college basketball. So we'll be gearing it up here on Bettor's Last Stand to talk plenty more about those leagues in the coming weeks. But our main focus, of course, is the NFL. We're going to take a quick break here on BLS, show number 70 from the Pine Room Studios. We're going to come back, talk a little bit about tennis. Finally, something that I want to talk about. Oh, no, I like hockey and college basketball to some degree. But I'm excited to talk about tennis. We'll recap a little bit about our future bets that we gave out last week, as well as golf back. Third week of major golf action as the American Express heads out to PGA West out in La Quinta, California. We'll talk about those and the NFL divisional playoffs coming up after the break. It's Bettor's Last Stand, show number 70. We'll be right back.
Reminder, this show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. All wagering activities should only be conducted by those 21 years of age or older and within the confines of federal, state, and local law. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, contact 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. All right, men, load the cannons and hold the line. You're listening to Bettor's Last Stand.
All right, rolling back along here. It's Bettor's Last Stand, show number 70, Pine Room Studios in downtown Wheeling in our Watchdog building. Check us out on the radio, 7 hours of Watchdog radio action, Pine Room action on the Watchdog each week. Our friends at AUSSIE Cab, who sponsor this show and many of our other shows, we appreciate everything they've done serving the Ohio Valley for all your transportation needs. 304-232-1313 or download the AUSSIE Cab app today. AUSSIE Cab, always working, do such a wonderful job. I was talking about on the radio the other day. I was out probably 5:45 on my way to work the other morning. It was snowing out pretty good, and there's AUSSIE Cabs out there taking people to where they need to go. It's really awesome to see. They're just everywhere. Any time of the day you're looking for them. If it's after midnight, if it's before 6 a.m., they're out there serving you and serving the Ohio Valley. So hats off to Phil and everybody and Tate and all the people down there at AUSSIE Cab for everything they do. Just a wonderful service for the area. Nailers were in action last week. It was ugly. Friday night got beat 5-2 in a game that they were in the game, but couldn't quite make the plays they needed to make against Indy. And then Saturday was just a debacle. Led 6-2 at the end of 2. Led 7-2 at one point. Lost the game 8-7. Just a gut-wrenching loss. And then they lost Sunday to Kalamazoo. The blown lead was also to Indy. So Indy 2 losses, and then Kalamazoo beat them on Sunday. So not good. Nailing it down. We'll have that on the show here on Friday on the Watchdog show. But yep, we'll recap that. We'll talk about the upcoming trip out to Iowa. But the Nailers need some points, and they need some fast because it's a really good division they're in, and now they're down near the bottom. And they were up near the top, and it can change very fast. So hopefully Coach Army can get it back on track, and we're excited to be partnered with the Nailers for so many cool things that they do down at the arena. They had Super Nailers World, and man, what a great night it started out. 6-2 lead, Super Nailers World going on, all kinds of stuff. People told me how their kids had just the time of their life down there, and then it all goes south with a 5-minute major and 2 late goals for the Fuel. So best of luck to the Nailers. We'll talk plenty more about them on the radio show. As always, Lunch Madness will be coming up here in a couple of weeks, starting in February. Take you right up to the March Madness college basketball tournament. We're going to be breaking it down, going through school lunches of 32 local teams here. Our Pine Room guys, and we're going to have plenty of school interaction with that as well on our Instagram's account. So follow us on there at Pine Room Studios. You'll see all the details of the contest, which I'm expecting to be released. We're trying to secure a couple of sponsors for it, so it's going to be really cool. And Chubb has done a really good job on the logo, and I've been putting together power rings and brackets and all kind of stuff. So should be a fun time. Tune in to the Watchdog Network for all the fun of Lunch Madness in the coming weeks from the Pine Room. Coach Dell's Dugout Talk should be releasing here soon. He had Andrew Koala. He was down at he had Andrew here in the studio a few weeks ago. Andrew was here over the break, assistant coach at Liberty University. And then he went down, and he and Jarrett and Jubb and Cooley went down to WVU to talk with Coach Maisie, and they did their second episode of the Coach Dell's Dugout Talk down there at the Mountaineer Complex. So cool stuff ahead. Those will be coming out at some point. We've had some radio rewinds on there. We had Horrifying Histories, Brenda Gansky on there this last week. Always just an incredibly knowledgeable lady. Fantastic podcast. If you're looking for a change from sports, highly recommend. You learn something, and she just does just a super, super job. So we did a radio rewind with her. We had Sir Yacht, social media influencer and Browns superfan, on the show last week as well. His interview's on there. So lots of good things happening. Keep your eyes open. Stuff will be popping up here and there. Plenty of other soup and stuffs in the works and various other things under the Pine Room Studios umbrella. All right, back to business now. We went through the bad beats or the half bad beats. A couple of things, industry news. Live Golf partnering with the U.S. Integrity for gaming integrity monitoring, compliance, and gamblers education. That's pretty interesting as Live Golf looks to get its image back on the good side of things. I've always been a proponent of Live Golf. I think they try to do things the right way. So hopefully they continue and they get that merger done and everybody can play off and on between the two tours and make a lot of money and show us the best golf each and every week, because right now it's spread out too much and it's not as good as it should be. The Cowboys loss to the Packers last week was one of the biggest wins for sports books, meaning bookmakers like myself, for the whole season. It was huge. Now, we actually could have used the Cowboys probably covered in the game, to be honest with you. But the money line kind of offset it because we had some very, very, very big Packer action, which is strange. Normally you wouldn't see that, but we had a couple of wiser fellows to come in and hit the Packers up pretty hard. So, but we ended up doing all right though, because the money lines obviously busted up everybody's money line parlays with Dallas. So anyway, biggest decision of the year for most books, at least many of them, different jurisdictions. I talked about it before. You get a lot of sway depending on where you are in the country. Who the area likes, who the area hates is kind of how you'll be able to base it. So you may sometimes see teams that you need in a smaller area that, the other places across the country need the exact opposite of you. So kind of like what I explained right there with the Packers, we kind of could have used them, but we'll take it. It was a pretty good one. But Dallas spread, Dallas money line, and then Dallas Super Bowl futures, which we did come out pretty well with those because we took a lot of Dallas money Super Bowl future wise. So good weekend for the books. Tough one for the public. This was an interesting story, and I'm referencing David Purdom, who writes for ESPN. He does the betting articles for them. He's very good. If you want to check this out, it's at David Purdom. You can find it on Twitter or X and link to it. I'm not going to go into the whole story because it'd take a while to explain. But DraftKings had a really big error when they posted numbers on their NBA opener. It was literally around Halloween. So October is the opening night of the NBA. They had Nikola Jokic, his points, assists, and rebounds combined, which should have been something I would imagine. If he's averaging, he almost gets a triple-double every game. I would imagine it would have had to have been in the 50s at the very least total, where they had it at 19. So it was a glaring error, or maybe it was 9.5. Whatever it was a way, 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 way off base. Like, it wasn't even close. So anyway, they had that up for a while. Had it up for several hours, and then there were some professional guys that found out about it, and they started half professionals. I don't want to say professionals, but half professionals started spreading the word about it, and it got hit really, really, really hard. And they went back and they found a lot of the guy that started the whole thing, and they restricted his account and so on and so forth. You can see by reading the article, but it's a fascinating thing. It really has the apps have made relations between bookmakers and bettors a little rocky because you don't know the people. And I can speak from firsthand experience on this. When you have a relationship with a guest, a bettor, it's a lot easier to explain your points of view, to explain how or why house rules come into play or whatever. And if you're reputable, if you do right by the people and you don't change numbers on them at the counter, you give them the max on the bets that they want before you move the price. And a lot of things that a lot of bookmakers don't do, like the best ones still pride themselves on that. But a lot of them don't do that. And it's bad. It's bad business. But then on the customer side of things, which I find myself to side with the customer a lot, even though I am on the other side of the counter, because I also live on that side of the counter too with my own stuff. Like, I bet as well. So I'm very sympathetic to customers, and most of the time I'm on the side of the customer whether it's in this case, whatever, but sometimes I'm not. Like, this was a palpable error. This was an obvious, clear and obvious error. Someone tried to take advantage of it, and they took a shot, and they tried to hurt a book, and you shouldn't be doing that. There's bad enough numbers out there that aren't clear and obvious where they're a mistake, where you get somebody's yards that are 30 yards less on one book than the other. That might not be a mistake. I don't think it probably is. A lot of times it's just the way that they set the numbers. It's going to vary. If you go out there and look, you'll see big swings. You'll see different pricing. You can find good, sharp plays without taking a shot. When you go after a book that has a bad number up there, they're going to come after you back. You're going to get restricted. You're going to get cut off, and you're not going to be welcome in any of their properties. And I don't blame them for that, because you can't take shots. It's just like if price tag on something in the store is labeled wrong, and then you get to the register and they try to tell you, or this, sir, this doesn't cost this. You got to pay what it actually is supposed to be. A lot of times you're not going to get away with the mistake. And if you knowingly are doing it and you're spreading the word around and you're taking shot after shot against them, they're going to put their defenses up, and I don't blame them for that. So you want to try to have a better, I'd like to think that people that I know on a first name basis and know their styles and know how they play and know all that, I feel like it would be a lot less likely that they would try to do that. But I can't say that's always the case. So I get it for both sides of it, but the bookmaker and bettor relationship, which once was something that was pretty strong, at least along legal lines, like in a legal sports book, is not what it once was. And people, I get so many messages, personal messages of friends, people that know me, and asking me about house rules or why this was like this or why they didn't get a refund for this. And I think books have made a mistake. They've coddled to these people a little too much. When a player gets hurt, they're giving them refunds and so on and so forth. They shouldn't do that, because now these people are thinking they deserve it for everything. The Steeler game got moved to Monday. The under obviously was getting crushed. Well, the weather improved by Monday. In most books, that's going to be action. Some places weren't. South Point, it was a refund. Other places, if it stayed in the venue and it was within 7 days, we put those in because of COVID. It got really tedious taking games down day after day. You take a game down, it got moved to Sunday night. No, now it got moved to Tuesday. No, now it got moved to Wednesday. We would have to refund, and it was really frustrating. It was tough, and it wasn't fair to people, and it wasn't fair to us. But to amend that problem or adjust for that problem, we did a 7-day venue thing, which is very common. Most places have had that. So if it stayed in the same venue, same city, and it's within that game week, it was going to still be action. Some places it had to be 24 hours, like the old rule is what we used to have pre-COVID. But I got a lot of questions this week about why people at DraftKings or so on didn't refund their bets because the Steeler game, and they felt they got shafted and blah, 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 blah. And all I can tell you is, yeah, that's a bad luck, but you're betting on information, and when the weather changes and the house rules are right in front of you, you can't complain. Like, that is a problem. You knew that game could be moved. You made the bet anyway. It said it right there in the house rules for you. I got to side with the house on that one. A lot of times there's situations where it isn't fair, and you want to do right by people. Golf, for instance, when a player scratches out of a golf tournament the week of the tournament, we refund all the tickets. I think that's fundamentally the right thing to do. If the guy doesn't tee off, now if he tees off, all bets are off. That's all action. But if a guy is going to go to the American Express this week and he hurts his back 2 nights ago and he can't play, if you bet that this morning and he gets to the tee box tomorrow and he cannot swing a club, I don't think that should be action. I think you should get your money back. It's just not right. That is absolutely not right. And I know a lot of places now have changed that all bets are action no matter when you make them. We don't do that. I don't believe in that. And I've fought to make sure we didn't have to do that, because I don't think it's right on any front. Now, if you're betting futures on majors, if you're betting the Masters and you're betting it at Christmas time and your guy doesn't make the tournament, that's action. I'm sorry. That's a high risk, high profitability bet where you're getting advanced odds at probably a very much more better friendly price. So to me, that's buyer beware. If that's the way it breaks out, that's the way it breaks out. I know that's not fun, but that would not be something that, if your guy just doesn't make the Masters, that isn't by any fault of us as a bookmaker. We put them up there. You bet them. You didn't have to bet them. And if you bet the week of, if you're betting on a Wednesday for a Thursday tournament and your guy shows up lame on Thursday morning, I don't think you should take that as action. So anyway, those are some interesting quandaries that we get into in the industry on a regular basis. So check out that article with David Purdom at ESPN. He does a really good job of breaking down kind of the relationship between bettors and the bookmakers. All right, on we go. Tennis, Aussie Open. All of our men's futures are currently still live, so that's a good thing. Now, the women, we were 4-1 going into today, and again, as I mentioned last week, it pains me, but Maria Sakkari, again, she fell apart today, lost 6-4, 6-4. Just does shame. I mean, this girl's a top-level seed, and she just cannot get out of her own head. She's one of the most talented players you'll ever see. She just can't. She can't do it. She just can't. I don't know why they continuously put her as a high seed. It's just she's not really a high seed because she has these mental barriers that she can knock it through, and she lost again. So took a shot with her. That was probably a mistake, but I said that last week it was going to be a low stake and just hopefulness that she could play to her talent and stay out of her own brain, and apparently that was not the case. So 4-2 in the women's. Hang on a second. Why am I getting messages here? Sorry about that. People were blowing me up there. I think it was a work thing, but we'll check that in a minute. 4-2 in the women's futures right now that are active. Samsonova and Sakkari both out. All of our futures in the men are still good. And just recapping a few of them. Djokovic to win the tournament, obviously. And I have a couple of exact matchups that we had with him for the final against Daniel Medvedev, and I can't remember the other ones, but you can check them all out, BLS_PRP. You can still get in on these now if you want to go back and look at them. I say if you play these, you still have some shots. Sabalenka is going to be really tough to beat on the women's side. Rybakina is going to be really tough to beat. Svitolina could make a little run. Osaka's already out, so we didn't have a play on her. But some of the guys that I said good hard court players, Yuri Lehecka, he plays tonight. Hercuse still going all right. Holger Rune playing well. So you can recap those on Bettors or on BLS_PRP, the Bettors Last Stand X page, and get in on those right now because they're still good prices. You can get them basically the same as what you could get before, because when these draws don't get turned upside down, you're going to keep pretty much the same odds, because those odds are based on who's the most likely opponents of these players as they advance on out to the fourth round, the quarters, and on out. So Coco Gauff definitely in a good spot in her quarter now that Sakkari's out. Not that it was going to be too much of an obstacle for her, but Aussie Open heating up, good stuff. Comes on usually around 7 o'clock Eastern time in the evening, so enjoy that while it goes on here for another week or so. But got a lot of live action there, so if you want to recap them, go over to the X page and check them out. Golf action, we did not do very well last week. We're going to try to bounce back. It is the Amex, the American Express at PGA West in La Quinta. Recapping last week, Grayson Murray wins the Sony at over 500 to 1. I actually heard some 550s out there, so shop around. I saw him as low as 175. I saw him as high as 500 myself, but I heard a couple of people tell me it was 550 as well, so they saw some 550s. So you can find these bombs out there. Just shop around. I can't stress that enough. And Nottingham Forest now back in front 3-2 over Blackpool. Oh, what a shame. And some bombs have won here in the American Express in the past. So I'll put these up all on Twitter and X, so hopefully you checked them out before the tournament went off. But I would recommend playing some of these on Friday anyway. If you listen to the show, check them out, see the odds, see where the guy, how he started the round out, and you can sometimes get better numbers. So don't give up on that. I'm going to be on Sung J M again this week. I think his game is coming back quite a bit. I talked about him a couple of weeks ago. He was right in the mix, played really, really well, shot an incredible course record on his in final round 2 weeks ago, and took last week off. So look for him to be back with a vengeance. Siwoo Kim, another one. He'll be one of my top plays. He's played very, very well here at PGA West. So keep an eye on Siwoo Kim. And then my second, other top pick is going to be Davis Thompson. He's around 79 to 1. Siwoo is around 45 to 1. And Sung J M should be between 18 and 20 to 1. Davis Thompson playing good golf. Second here last year. Think he's got a shot. Pretty good price for him. A couple other guys, bigger prices. Actually, I'll go to the smaller prices. Patrick Cantley's 9 to 1 here. He's got a good course history. He's playing really well. I think he'll be very, very formidable, but I can't really recommend betting him at 9 to 1. It's just too low of a price. Scotty Scheffler's like 5 to 1, the favorite here. I'm just not going to give bets out like that. It's just no return, and there's too many other good players out there. Eric Cole's been playing great. Gave him out the last 2 weeks. He's playing really good, so we'll keep on him. Tony Finau, probably worth a top 5 or top 10 play. He's 33 to 1. He never really ever wins. Something he did last year, but not a guy that closes very well. So Finau top 5, probably a good one, top 10. JT Poston, Taylor Montgomery, both playing some exceptional golf right now. I'd take a shot with both of those guys. Poston's been playing well the last 2 weeks. He's around 30 to 1. Montgomery around 50 to 1. And then a couple of bombers here. Eric Barnes. If you listen to anything on VEASAN, you get there's a guy named Jeff Seeley on there, and he does a Cut Makers podcast. He's friends with this Eric Barnes. Played golf with him recently, and says his game is really shaping up pretty well. His putter's come alive, and he's got some decent course history, and he's battling back from some of the smaller tours, and is expected to be a guy that could be in some in contention a little bit this year. So Eric Barnes this is a staggering number, 650 to 1. So that's worth throwing $5 on, I would say. So keep an eye on him. And then Lanto Griffin's a guy he's around 290 to 1. He's had some good runs here in the past. Played well last week as well, getting his game back into form. I like Lanto Griffin as a winner, I'll bet, because nearly 300 to 1. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. And then I'll probably play him for a top 10, maybe top 5, maybe even top 20. So take a peek at those. And then Eric Von Rooyen, who's a guy who's really hit or miss. He's like a guy that either makes the cutters in the top 5, but he's 90 to 1, 100 to 1. Definitely worth a peek. When his game gets going and he gets hot, he's really, really tough. So recapping top plays, we have Sung J M, Siwoo Kim, and Davis Thompson. Guys who are kind of chalky, can't lay 9 to 1, so I won't recommend that one. Mid-range players, Eric Cole, 30 to 1. I think I said Siwoo Kim, 44. Finau, 33 to 1. JT Poston, 30 to 1. Taylor Montgomery, 50 to 1. Bombers, Lanto Griffin, around 300 to 1. Eric Von Rooyen, around 100 to 1. And Eric Barnes, around 650 to 1. So take a peek at some of those guys. As I said, some bombs have won here in the past. I think John Rahm won this last year. But previous 2 seasons, there was some 200 to 1 plus shots that hit. So anything can happen. PGA West course gets a little bit tougher, but still a pretty good players course to get the games rolling here as we head into the tougher stretch here in a month or so. But it's good to have golf back, and we'll take a peek at pretty much every golf tournament the rest of the way, leading up to the Masters and all the majors coming up this summer. So good stuff from the golf front as we're in the 3rd week. So good to have it back. All right, back to business now. NFL divisional playoffs. This is what everybody wants to talk about. So going into these games, you look at the card. Saturday's games: Houston at Baltimore. Baltimore -9, total 44. And Green Bay, San Francisco 9.5, total 50.5. Both home teams coming in off buys, both number 1 seeds. As we know, Houston comes in off an impressive win. Green Bay comes in off an impressive win. So the way I look at these is I kind of have my hunches. I kind of have what I think I like. And then I just go through, and I try to do this each year for the playoffs especially, is I rank the quarterbacks. And you can do this during the regular season too, because I actually do it sometimes if I like a team in a spot, then I'll go through and compare on this metric. And it's really a simple one, and anybody can do it. So it's who has the better. Oh, they disallowed that goal from Nottingham Forest, so it's 2-2. Okay. So you go through and you rank the head coach. Who's got the better head coach? Who's got the better quarterback? It's as simple as that. And, man, I tell you, it's a recipe for success a lot of the time. Now, some teams have weird things like they don't win that way, but most of the time, if your coach is pretty good and your quarterback's pretty good, you're going to have a shot of winning. So here's what I came up with. I ranked all 8 teams in order, head coach and quarterback, and then you get a value of, add them together. So if you have the number 1 and the number 1, you got 2. So anyway, here it goes. So the coaching side of things, I had Andy Reid number 1, and that's really only because he's won 2 Super Bowls here in recent years, and he has the best quarterback. So if you go back over to that, to me, the Chiefs have a 2. So I know everybody's down on the Chiefs. Everybody hates the Chiefs because of Taylor Swift, on and on and on. They're annoying, blah, blah, blah. I got nothing but respect for them. I'm by no means a Chief fan, but I have nothing but respect for them. And if they can win me money, I'll gladly look the other way on all the other stuff. So I had Andy Reid rated the top coach, and Mahomes, without question, the best quarterback. I don't really understand other shows. I've heard people do this kind of similar thing. Maybe not quite the way that I do it, but similar. And they're only basing it off of what they've seen, like last week. Mahomes played in a minus 30 game where he didn't really need to be flashing the ball around and stuff. Like, they won the game. That's all that matters. Josh Allen played in a high-level game where he was able to, take advantage of the conditions since the game got moved, and he looked very good. But Josh Allen, he's not ever gotten over the hump. He hasn't won anything yet, and not taking anything against him, but you can't put him ahead of Mahomes. You just simply can't. He's never done it. If you haven't done something, you cannot be better than a guy who has done that very same thing. That's simple as that, at least in my mind. So Kansas City, without question, is a 2. Maybe they're still the best team. They got the best coach. They got the best quarterback. Number 2 in the coaching department, I gave it to John Harbaugh. I think he's a really good coach. He's won a Super Bowl before. He's had incredible amount of success. One of the few teams that have been able to go into New England in their prime and beat Belichick and Brady on the road. That is not an easy thing to do. And he has not had great quarterbacks. I mean, if you want to consider Joe Flacco, he's good, but he's not great. Now he has a great regular season quarterback when he's healthy. But John Harbaugh, to me, clear and by far the second best coach here behind Andy Reid. Second quarterback I had is Josh Allen. So I have Josh Allen rated right behind Mahomes. He's exceptional. He's Buffalo's number 1 go-to, and he is going to take the Bills. The Bills are going to go as far as he takes them, so to speak. So, but going back and pairing him up with the numbers. So I got Allen as a second-rated quarterback, and I have Sean McDermott as the 6th-rated coach. So that gives Buffalo a score of 8. I think Sean McDermott, for early in his career, I thought he was going to be really good, but he has made a lot of mistakes in recent years. Going back to even when Deshaun Watson was playing for the Texans, he made a couple of really bad decisions for the Bills in a game that they should have won, and they blew. I'm not a fan of him. I think he's really went down in my book, and he obviously went down with his little Al-Qaeda stuff, basically giving great credit to the terrorists on 9/11, which makes me sick. And I can't tell you how much respect I lost for him in the meantime. But but prior to that, I thought he had a deficiency in coaching anyway, and I think that shows itself quite often. I didn't think he coached a very good game the other day against the Steelers, but he's playing a far inferior opponent, so that helped. And Mike Tomlin is just completely out to lunch or out for a cup of coffee basically the whole game. He doesn't know when to challenge. He doesn't know when to call timeouts. Tomlin is just not a very good coach either. But anyway, keeping on track with the playoff games that we're talking about here. So I had Mahomes and Allen, the top 2 quarterbacks, Reid and Harbaugh, the top 2 coaches. I'll go back to coach number 2. Harbaugh, number 2. Jackson was quarterback number 3. So I have him at a number of 5. So that makes Baltimore a 5, KC a 2, Buffalo an 8 so far. So that's how I have that one going. Third coach on my list, D'Amico Ryans. I think he's shown a lot. It's only his first year, and I'm willing to look past. He had one clock issue in a game where they were playing. I want to say it might have been Indianapolis. No, it was Jacksonville, I think. That he made a mistake, and he should have used the timeout and ran the ball and got his kicker closer, and they ended up losing the game. Thought that was the only mistake that I'd seen him make this year, but I know that's going to happen, especially for a guy in his first year. I think he has his team playing incredibly hard, and he is just done a fantastic job and on every in every part of the game. And he's got a rookie quarterback who's really good, and he's mentored him, and he's not even an offensive coach. So to me, really, really high marks for D'Amico Ryan. So I have him the third-ranked coach, and I have C.J. Stroud, the fourth-ranked quarterback, which gives Houston a number of 7. So you got Kansas City 2, Baltimore 7, Baltimore 5, Houston 7, Buffalo 8. Those are my top 4 ones so far if you cross the matrix. Fourth-ranked coach, I had Kyle Shanahan. Now, this is a staggering stat that I heard on the radio today. Kyle Shanahan, when trailing in the fourth quarter, I believe he's 0-28. I didn't even know he had 28 losses for San Francisco. But anyway, outrageous. It might not have been 28. It might have been 22. I think it was 28. But anyway, whatever it is, he hasn't won a game coming from behind in the fourth quarter. That, to me, is alarming, and that's why he's not higher on this list. He was part of that team that blew the lead against New England. Very conservative play calls when he was with the Falcons. I don't love him. I never loved his dad. I thought his dad was very overrated. If he didn't have John Elway and Terrell Davis, he would not have won anything. I'm not Shanahan guy. I mean, I don't think he's the worst, but I don't think he's the best. I think he's got good ingenuity on offense. Game management and stuff, I don't care for him. I just don't think he's that good. He's middle of the pack. Not bad, but not good enough. So he's a 4. And then I have Purdy at a 5. So I had San Francisco at a 9. Obviously, it doesn't account for teams' defenses. This is just strictly confidence ratings more than anything across the board there. 6th rated coach that I had, or I'm sorry, 5th rated. Shanahan was 4 almost by default. 5th rated coach, Dan Campbell. I like his aggressive nature to some extent, but it also does him in other times. So that is a concern. I had Jared Goff rated 7th. To me, he's basically tied for last. I didn't give anybody an 8. I gave 2 7s out. But Goff and Campbell match up for a combined total score of 12. So that not really good enough. And their defense on top of that worries me a touch. Lions just quite aren't there to that next threshold, at least at this point. Our next coach, our 7th rated coach, because we had McDermott at 6. Campbell was 5. Todd Bowles. Now, Todd Bowles made a little bit of progress with me and a nice game plan against the Eagles the other night. And he's kind of up and down. Good defensive mind, I think. Not sure he has a very good clue about the game flow. So that would concern me a little bit. So that's why he's 7th. Don't think he's great, but don't think he's the worst of the worst. And then I have Baker Mayfield rated 6th. So that would give them a score of 13 for Tampa. To me, Mayfield can be very good. He can also be very bad. But I think in the right situation with the proper coaching and the right personnel, I think he can excel and be a starter in the league. And he's shown that, and he took his team to the playoffs. Got him a nice playoff win as an underdog last week. And then finally, Matt LaFleur. I know he's going to take a lot of credit, and everybody wants to hate on Aaron Rodgers and say, "Oh, see, I told you the coach was good, Jordan Love was good, Aaron Rodgers was the problem," blah, blah. That's just not true. If you watch Packer games this year, they lost 5 games to teams that didn't make the playoffs. So to me, that's definitely a bad sign. I know they looked good last week, but remember who they were playing. Dallas. Worst game plan, worst preparation of any team. Mike McCarthy would be dead last on this list if he were still in, without question. He would have been dead last in mind of all the playoff coaches. Everybody that lost last week, Stefanski, Mike Tomlin, on and on and on. Nobody would have been lower than McCarthy. He's absolutely the most lowest rated guy on the board. He is completely clueless and is just an awful coach. And LaFleur is right there. So LaFleur benefited last week. I do not think that happens again. Shanahan was a mentor of his. They worked on the same staff for Kyle Shanahan's dad. I think you'll know him pretty well. If Green Bay were able to get the lead in the game, I think it could be a different story, but I don't count on that happening. So LaFleur rated last among the coaches. Jordan Love tied for last in the quarterback. Everything looks good when Jordan Love gets time. He's got a great offensive line, so I will give him that. But we'll see what happens. Gets a little bit better of a defense. I'm just not sold on the Packers. They no-show too often for me to count them as being consistent. You just don't see great quarterbacks no-show and lose at home to Tampa Bay. And I can't remember the other couple teams that they lost to. They lost to 5 really bad teams. And not to mention in their own place losing to Tampa Bay. Barely beat the Bears a few weeks ago in an awful Bears outfit. So I just have no confidence in Green Bay as far as stability. I feel like you could get a great game out of them or a terrible game. So anyway, that's how I kind of rank everybody. So it was like this. Kansas City was 2, Baltimore a 5, Houston a 7, Buffalo an 8, San Francisco a 9, Detroit a 12, Tampa a 13, and Green Bay a 17. So you can do that in your own mind. You don't have to follow my stuff. You just have your own opinions. Go through and rank them yourself and see if that helps you break any ties in a game that maybe you're at a coin flip. But going to this week's games, my picks, things that I like a little bit in these games. Baltimore, Houston, I don't like to lay 9 in a playoff game, but I will say this. The money right now is coming in lopsided on the Houston Texans, the Green Bay Packers, and the Buffalo Bills. You have 76% on Houston, 74% on Green Bay, and 70% on Buffalo. That is the early. I shouldn't even say it's money. It's more tickets. So that's ticket count. To me, that's a terrible sign. I'm good with this because I'm against all 3 of these teams. I don't think any of them are the right side. But who knows? There's a long way to go. You could see some sharp money come in on one side or another and change that around. But I'm not basing anything solely off of that. It just makes me feel good that the public is overreacting to Green Bay and Houston, which I knew they would, as well as Buffalo. So I don't want to lay 9 with Baltimore, but if I had to make a play on the side in this game with the point spread, it would definitely be Baltimore. I think Houston's had a great season. I think they got a great quarterback. I think they have a great coach. I think they have a great future. I'm just not sure they're ready to win quite yet. So I think Baltimore is going to be very focused on not being rusty and look as bad as they did the last time they had the number 1 seed and came in off a bye. I think they'll be very focused. I think they'll get an early lead in the game, and I think it'll be tough for the Texans to be able to come back. Baltimore defense is pretty well rested right now. I think they will give them a lot more trouble than the Browns did last week. So I kind of lean under to the game, and then I would slightly lean to Baltimore. So not a strong play there. I'll be cheering for Baltimore, obviously. Green Bay and San Francisco. This game comes down to if Green Bay could somehow get the lead early in the game and continue to sustain and hang in, I wouldn't say they're out of it. I don't have confidence in the quarterback or the coach, but I don't really have confidence in Kyle Shanahan either. 9.5 is a lot of points to lay. San Francisco does not have a great secondary, and Green Bay pass protects very well. Now, I do think the 49ers will slow them down in the running game, which Dallas couldn't do. So I think that'll help the 49ers. If the 49ers get the early lead and can score in a couple of explosive plays, which they may well do, I think they'll bury the Packers. But it comes down to who gets the ball, how that all works out, and who could go down and score first. I like the game under a little bit. I like both games under on Saturday. I know everybody's going to be wanting to play this over, but I think Shanahan will control the ball a little bit, run the ball, incorporate all his playmakers in various roles, and I think they'll kind of have a couple of those really long 7-8 minute drives capped off with a touchdown, and I don't think they want to get in a shootout with Green Bay because I think he knows his secondary isn't great, and if the pass rush can't get there, which Green Bay's got a great line, then you don't want to get in a shootout of a team like that. You want to get the lead, you want to control the ball and control the game, so that's why I'll lean under there. I know that's probably a risky play. Those are my plays on Saturday. Sunday's action, got 2 games, Tampa at Detroit, Kansas City at Buffalo. Detroit -6, total 48.5. Kansas City catching 2.5, total 45.5 in that game. This is tricky. The Lions defense concerns me a lot. Tampa Bay has had serious consistency problems. They were bad, they're good. They're bad, they're good. They're bad, they're good. They were very good last week. I'm not sure they can do that again, but the game is indoors, so that helps a little bit. They're not going out to a cold stadium or anything. I think there's going to be some points here. I'll say this. Detroit has no lock on the back door. So if you're going for a backdoor cover, Detroit is a team that is going to be vulnerable every single time. So that's why I think there's a little value in taking Tampa. If you can get 6.5, if the thing goes to 7, absolutely. But even if you can get 6, I take a look at Tampa. Even if you do an in-play, they're falling behind, they're down, play them plus 10.5 or something if you can get an in-play number like that. Because I do think they'll have a shot at coming in the back door on the Lions because the Lions really struggled to get off the field last week against the Rams. And Tampa's got some playmakers on offense too, and if they can protect Mayfield, that'll be important. If they can protect him a little bit, I think they'll be very live to cover the spread. I think the Lions will probably win the game. I think there'll probably be a field goal type game. But I definitely think Tampa might be the side plus the points there. If you wanted to tease that, even if you did a 6-point teaser, I mean, that's you in a pretty good spot. 7 gets you to 13. I would consider that, and I think there'll be points because I think the Lions could build a 27-10 type lead. That gets you to 37 right there. You could see a couple of late scores by Tampa to get that thing tight again. I think the Lions will probably have a shot of scoring around 30 in this game, 24 to 30. So I think over seems to be the good side on that one. And then my favorite game of the week, I absolutely love Kansas City in this spot. Now, I'm not saying I'm rooting for them, but I respect them a lot. And in my opinion, they got a better coach and they got a better quarterback. Well, actually, just a slightly better quarterback. Josh Allen's awesome. He's by far the best player on Buffalo's team. I don't love Buffalo's running backs. I don't love Buffalo's receivers. I know Kansas City's receivers suck too, but Rice is coming along. And Mecole Hardman, who didn't do a whole lot last game, but I think he'll be heavily involved. He's on the field a lot. I think he's going to get back in the sync. He's a guy Mahomes trusts a lot. So I think Kansas City is kind of, I don't want to say peaking, but they're getting a little better at the right time. You still got to beat them. They're the champs. I think catching 2.5 here, if you can get to 3, it's a great bet. I think Kansas City will win this game. I think they have a better coach. I think they have a better defense. They have a slightly better quarterback. And I like their running game better. Their defense is not nearly as beat up as Buffalo. Buffalo lost 2 more key players off their defense. You cannot continue to replace these guys. Look at the Dolphins. They cannot continue to replace all the bodies they had missing on defense. I think Buffalo is very vulnerable. I thought Steelers had a lot of chances against them that they squandered. I don't think Kansas City will squander it. I think this is a business-like performance. Everybody's saying Mahomes can't win on the road. That's just flat out stupid. And it just shocks me how many people are on the Buffalo bandwagon. You got to remember the way this team started this season wasn't very good. And I'm just not. I think they have a lot of vulnerabilities. I'm not saying they're not good. Allen makes them a legitimate Super Bowl team, but I just don't think they'll be good enough to win this game. We'll see. I wouldn't mind if they won, but I'm going to go with Andy Reid and Kansas City here. I think they go into Buffalo and they win the game. I'll be playing some alternate numbers on this game. I think the Chiefs might win this game by 6 points or more. I don't know. I know I'm against everybody on this. Every expert I've heard, Buffalo. Every public person I've heard, Buffalo. We'll need Kansas City badly, I would imagine, unless we take some sharp money on Kansas City. But most likely, Buffalo is going to be the sweetheart play of the week. Everybody in love with them right now. Just not certain that I don't love their defense. I don't love their running game. I don't love their receivers. Their tight ends are pretty decent. I do like the quarterback, but they're too beat up on defense. Short week. Chiefs get 2 more days of rest. Just to me, everything says Chiefs. It just screams Chiefs. And then as far as the total goes, I think it's an under. I think the Chiefs will stymie them a little bit. I think Buffalo will probably come out really, really, really aggressive. And if the Chiefs can weather the storm, I think the Chiefs, in the best interest of them, I think if they get the ball first, I think they're going to be in good shape. I think they'll go down and score. If they make Buffalo chase, I think they're going to be very good. But kind of lean to the under here, lean under in the first half as well. I think the Chiefs will run the ball well, control the clock, and Mahomes just makes a couple more plays than Allen, and it might not even be Allen's fault. This could turn on to another one of them shootouts where Mahomes just out-duels him because the Buffalo defense couldn't stop him or his coach let him down. So Josh Allen's good enough to win this game, no doubt about it. I just don't think his supporting cast is as good, but we shall see. It should be an exciting week of divisional playoff action, that's for sure. But the most important opinion is your opinion, so be sure and figure out what you want, get a game plan, check the weather, check all the other variables, personnel and everything, and go with what you got. So that's going to do it for us here. Bettor's Last Stand. All the picks will be posted at the Pine Room Studios on X and at BLS_PRP. Put up all the stuff for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and any other tennis plays or what have you throughout the coming few days. That'll do it for us. Be sure and check us out on the radio, Watchdog Network, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Give us a call on the show. You can text us. Very interactive show. We like to have all the fans involved, and it's good to hear from our listeners and fans. that'll do it for us here in the Pine Room Studios on Bettor's Last Stand, show number 70. Have a wonderful weekend. Get out there and call your IC Cab, 304-232-1313, or download the IC Cab app today. IC Cab, always working. Get that arranged for the weekend. Get out there, have some fun, watch some playoff games, and most of all, stay warm. It's a chilly couple days, but we're going to be up into the 50s, I believe, next week. So until next week, we shall see you. Hopefully we'll see you or hear you. Call us in on the radio. Follow along, whatever you want to do. Pine Room Studios, lots going on. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next week on Bettor's Last Stand. All right, welcome in. Bettor's Last Stand, back after a Thanksgiving hiatus. Last time we were seen over at Belmont Brew Works. Had our buddy Rick on the show. He had us over. It was a great evening. We talked a lot about sports betting on the show as always, and then had a few drinks and something to eat. So it was a good time. Chris here with me in the studio.
Hello.